Greetings and welcome to this time. Here with me is our beloved Mario C. Moorhead, and I'll be interviewing him as it relates to the upcoming UCA M20. Yes, we are in 2020, and UCA has been around for a long time. And as it's been here a long time, Mario has been here a long time. So we'd like to get some words from him as far as why was UCA formed and when.
That's a simple enough answer. Why it was formed? Because it was absolutely necessary. United Caribbean Association, and anybody who was alive knows I here that that was the most pressing issue. We were disunited Virgin Islands, because if you weren't born here and you looked like us, you was an alien, and he was one of us. So we wanted to help as best we could to organize us around this principle that we are descendants of Africa. Just that issue crying out for attention. We addressed the issue.
And around what time was that? What year was that?
1969.
But specifically May 20th, and that is why it's being recognized each May 20th each year?
That is why
69?
What is being recognized?
UCA M20 being recognized like for all the years, each year. There is a particular activity or, remembrance of when it was started.
Well, it's a misunderstanding that many people have that May 20th, which is what M20 stands for, is somehow the commencement, the establishment, the organization, beginning of UCA. And I was saying that May 20th is a big day for UCA.
And it's not?
That's what I just said. All we're saying is that M20, May 20th, is a big day for UCA. And you suggesting it is not?
No, I'm not suggesting it's not a big day.
Yeah, we think it's a very big day.
And being that it is important for the African people, especially, I'm going to pinpoint that, in the Caribbean who has been disunited, and what type of activities or projects UCA has done in the years to unite people of the Caribbean, African people of the Caribbean.
When you say activities, what do you mean, like party or celebration, or something? What do you mean by activities?
Projects.
Give me an example you mean by projects.
Okay, so let's say historically wise, and I'm saying based on my knowledge, that each year, for the most part, there have been activities of reenactment of the Great Fire Burn, and that's usually held on October 1st. What would you call that?
I would call that trying to fill the void. There was July 3rd, which is Emancipation Day, is October 1st, which is, well, putatively Fireburn Day, but is really contract day. And we were filling the void, just like there was obvious disunity amongst us here, as all of us being African descendants. Well, again, there was this really painful, aching void that July 3rd would come and go, and the government, no organization, no one would recognize it as Emancipation Day. So we actually would have a function to recognize Emancipation Day, same way as with October 1st. We would have activity to recognize the day. And well, we were partially successful because within a few years, well, the people saw fit to press our representatives in government to actually make July 3rd a legal holiday. We have not yet had that happen for October 1st, but we're hoping that one day it will, because, well, obviously, these are historical inflection points for the people of the Virgin Islands. Obviously. And it's the day before July 4th, and yet, like I say, it was painful because it would be like July 3rd was simply the eve of the 4th of July celebration. And it was like, what? What happened to our emancipation? And so, if that's what you call an activity, well, that's what we did, because it was screaming out for recognition. How could we, descendants of Africa, the history of slavery, don't even want to recognize Emancipation Day when General Bodo and Admiral Martin King liberated us from the physical chains of slavery? Well, if that's what you call activity, well, that's what it was, but we didn't see it as a activity. It was something necessary.
As you said, fill in the void. And we have a lot of voids. I can say that must be filled. And over the years, you have written books, and books to, I would say, awaken the minds of the people so that they could know more about themselves. And growing up here on St. Croix, going to the public schools, I must say there was one particular book, and it was by an author, Mr. Richard Strada, Clear the Road. And that to me was only expressed during VI History Month. However, the continuance of our history throughout the school year was void. And there was another author who wrote a book, The Umbilical Cord. That was identified in high school. I think it was VI history class or something like that, but as an elective. So there are voids throughout the rest grades. And what would you recommend? I know, but what do the people need to know as far as you recommending that our history, and where should it be placed, you know, in our school, in our education system, and fill in the voids? Yo.
Well, actually, Madam President, as you very well know, there is a statute, meaning a law, Act 4884, in the Virgin Islands Code, that states that all students shall be taught Virgin Islands history and basic Caribbean history. This is still not happening, and this was, well, Senator Bud Bryan's bill from in 1983. And here we are in 2020, and you still can't get Virgin Islands history in our schools. I mean, you could learn about, well, the Mayflower or Jamestown, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson or Abraham Lincoln or whatever in the States, but actually so we're like, well, when did we first arrive here as captives? I mean, well, how about our cultural, historical heroes that we don't have any? I mean, we still have to look at a George Washington and most of them. Again, this is my point of view, and many people agree with me that a profound weight, burden that we carry emotionally is that, and as a people, is that our leadership, for reasons that they should have to explain, refuse to allow us to know who we are, to learn about ourselves, to learn our history. And again, that's as obvious as not celebrating Emancipation Day. It's like, what's wrong with you? You're ashamed of yourself. You don't want people to know who you've been. And that's the way I look at it. I mean, I don't see it as any major coup that you should want to elicit these things from your government. I mean, this is an overwhelmingly population that is of African descent. I mean, this is no argument, there's no question as to, you know, who the Virgin Islands represent in terms of ethnicity, peoplehood. We are descendants of Africa, but there's absolutely nothing about our history that we learn in schools, and they continue to, well, hide it away from our students.
Hide it from our students so that they won't celebrate who they are, so that they won't be able to say, hey, I am proud to be who I am. I know my history. And that is a serious void. And UCA has brought a lot of awareness to those who have been seeking who they are, want to know more about their history, and that has helped, I know, a lot of people. But to take it to a higher heights, definitely I agree, our history needs to be purposely, intentionally put in our schools. So all children from K to 12, even at the university level, you know, we need to be able to definitely recognize that this is us and be proud, and not be what they, I'm saying they who don't want the truth to come out, to be what they want us to be. It's time for us to be who we are, and we need to know who we are. So you've taken it to higher heights, you've written books, and I know you've encouraged people to read, and you know, there are treasures hidden in your books. And the last book that you have put out there, I'm gonna ask you, right? What would you like the people, and they have to hear it from your mouth, not mine. What would you like the people to do with your book? This last one, could you please speak of it briefly?
It's a very obvious, Madam President, to read it, to comprehend what it is saying, because all I have been trying to do in this Crucial Dialogues, as is what is entitled, with a subtitle, Defining the Problem, is speaking to the fact that we as a people have absolutely no consciousness of what that is. Who we are. We define ourselves by the standards through the lens of the European, white people, Americans. But as far as a distinct people, we can't define Africanness. We can't give anything positive, constructive, enlightening, or informative to anyone as to what it is to be a descendant of Africa. We have no concept of these things. And even though we have representative government, people who elect to represent us in government, we don't get to study these things. We don't get to learn these things. We don't, so that we look at the world through the lens of white people. And everything that we see and know is according to the principles and ideals and the values of white people, as if Africans, African descendants, well, we don't have principles, we don't have values, we don't have ideas of our own, and that's the way it is. And so to progress is synonymous with to be white, because there is nothing positive, nothing constructive, nothing motivating about being a descendant of Africa. That is something that is totally marginalized and really dismissed, discarded. It doesn't merit a second thought to all.